And if someone says something that sparks some thoughts or ideas, feel free again to hop on and chime in and share your thoughts. And most importantly, we want to have fun. While this work is challenging, there's fun to be had and fun to connect with one another. And so really want to just make sure these guidelines are clear to everybody. I want to pause there to see if anyone has any questions before we get started. Okay, and feel free to put in your name and your Healthy Start project in the chat box. It'd be great to get a sense of where everyone's from. Thank you. And so, like I said, sorry, forgot the slide. So yes, please put in your name, your Healthy Start project and location, and your role into the chat box. And if you don't know where to access the chat box, it's click on the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thank you, everybody.
I see those starting to come in now.
Yeah, that's great. Hello, Evelyn. Hello, Katie. So while you all do that, please continue to share your names and your Healthy Start project and role in the chat box, but we're gonna go ahead and go into the discussion because we do have a lot of questions to spark communication and ideas with you all.
So Lisa, before we dive into some of the questions, just to set the stage a little bit. So some of you have attended these calls before, so welcome back. For some of you, this is your first time attending today. So just to let you know a little bit more about like what these are and what you can expect. So we host these calls every other month, and they're really informal. So there's no presentation. We do have a few slides to just kind of prompt some discussion. But what this is really an opportunity for folks to come together and brainstorm with each other, share ideas, share lessons learned, share best practices. Because what we heard at the TA and Support Center is, the webinars are great and you guys are learning a lot from that. But what you really want is time with your peers to actually learn from each other. And so this is the space where you guys can come together to do that. And so we listen to you to learn what the topics for the calls should be about. So while we know, ahead of time, like the day and the time of the call, we don't always know what the topic is going to be about. Once we end a particular networking cafe based on the questions that have come up and the things that you guys are sharing, that's how we gauge what the next call is going to be about. So for this particular call, the last networking cafe we had, which I guess Lisa was 2 months ago now, time flies, I still can't believe it's August. There was a lot of conversation and discussion around fatherhood involvement. So many of the grantees were really struggling with their recruitment efforts, with their retention efforts, and there were a lot of reasons why. We had turnover at a lot of sites, and so new staff, new directors who were in, and they were just trying to figure out really what to do, what's working, what's not working. They don't want to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of folks that have said, I've tried this and I've tried that and I've tried this and like nothing seems to be working. And so what can I do next? And so we've been able to point those folks to a lot of the resources that we have on the EPIC website, which has been fantastic, but I think folks wanted just a little bit more. So this again was that time for you to kind of engage with each other. So Lisa and I will facilitate the discussion with some of the prompting questions, but this is really going to be, again, kind of your time to learn from each other, to ask your questions. There's no stupid questions because, again, we have heard it all. Folks that have tried nothing yet because they're new and they really don't know where to start. Folks that have tried everything and nothing seems to be working, and so they're stuck, and so they're going to be asking you for help on like what they should try next. So that's really how we're going to use that time today. Ken Harris is joining us. He is our fearless leader who, is very passionate about this work, has been doing fatherhood work for quite some time. So he's going to have some pointers for you also, some suggestions. He's going to facilitate some of the discussion as well, but just wanted to set the stage for what you can expect for today. So feel free to Come off camera if you'd like. You're welcome to. I know folks are zoomed out. I've got my blue blockers on today because my eyes are struggling with the screen today. So feel free to stay off camera if you'd like. As far as how we will engage with each other and ask questions, you're welcome to put your questions in the chat. If there's something that you want to ask that you don't want to ask for the group, or you want to remain anonymous, then that's okay too. You can send your question directly to either Lisa or I, and we can ask the question on your behalf for everyone. So we got lots of ways to do it. You can come off mute and ask, you can put it in the chat, you can send it to Lisa and I to ask. But just wanted to set the stage a little bit, just to let you know kind of how the flow of today is going to go. Lisa, did I miss anything?
No, thank you so much for that really thorough review of what the Networking Cafe is for and why we decided to focus on father and male recruitment and retention. Thank you so much. And of course, Ken is able to join us, so we're excited to have him help facilitate as well. First of all, I think we're going to do a quick poll to have you all evaluate yourself anonymously. And we're going to ask you, how would you rate the father and male partner recruitment and retention efforts at your Healthy Start site? So we've used Poll Everywhere for this. You can go onto your computer's browser and log in via pollev.com/Healthy Start 428 to respond to this poll. Or you can text 238, let me double check, Actually, let's go ahead and the instructions are at the top. So I think we'll go ahead and just use the web browser today, pollev.com/Healthy Start 428 to participate in the polls. And if you have any challenges, please feel free to put it in the chat and answer it through the chat. So how would you rate the father and male recruitment and retention efforts at your Healthy Start site? Go ahead and put in a 1 if it's poor, 2, 3 for fair, 4 or 5 for excellent. And we'll give you some time as I'm sure everyone's trying to log in via the web browser. Thank you, Cal. And thank you, Tess, for the instructions. And again, as Pia said, if there's any questions you have that you'd like us to share with the group for you, feel free to chat us privately and we'll go ahead and send that to the group.
It's going to be a great conversation. I see the 2s in the chat, so we've got a lot that we can chat about and hopefully share with each other.
Definitely.
And I would say if folks are even struggling how to rate from poor, excellent, or fair, if there are other words you want to use to describe, then you should feel free to kind of come off mute and share that as well.
It looks like there's some technical difficulties, so let me just double check Poll Everywhere really quick. So please feel free to continue to respond.
Okay, while Lisa's checking on that, since we do have a lot of 2s in the chat, I don't know if anybody would be willing to come off of mute just to share just more thoughts about your 2. And as I looked over the gallery, I see a lot of you that I know and know your site a little bit. So thank you all for being here. And again, thanks to staff for moving it on. I apologize for joining late. I had technical difficulties myself. But as I looked out, I know there's a lot of experience represented here. So we are, as Peter saying, hoping some good dialogue for you all to support each other. But if folks want to just talk a little bit about your 2s, and June, I see you're out there, June Gray, also Avis, you know, so any thoughts you want to just kind of put out there for us to kick it off a little bit? Oh, go ahead, Steve. I see your hand is up.
Oh no, Stephen, looks like you're on mute. We see your lips moving, but we don't hear anything. Not yet. Don't you love the Zoom world? Oh, yes, we got you now. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I just wrote a question there. So I noticed, like in the fatherhood program, many men don't really want to enroll in the program. What is your advice, and how can we actually motivate all these men? Thank you.
Yeah, does anyone have a response for him? And I certainly can have a comment, but any responses that many men don't want to enroll, how do we get them to enroll? So either raise your hand or write in the chat.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, this is Johnny Taylor from Boston. Boston.
Hi, Johnny.
How you doing? I think that if we can try to get the father involved, I think we should pass out flyers. We should go to the centers and pass out flyers to let them know that this is what we can offer them to be partners with their partners. I think the flyer would be good, or you just go there for just to go to meet the fathers and explain to the fathers from man to man. Understand what I'm saying? Because if you just go there and just ask for, because okay, when you go to the center, it's just mostly the mothers there, and the fathers be there too. But most of the questions is only going to be referred to the mothers, and the father's going to be there, like, how like what I'm here for. If all the questions just go to the mother and not asking the father. So I think that us as a case manager, that we should go, that we should provide, like I said, like the vouchers. We should provide, just how to recruit them and let them know that they still they have majority of the part of asking questions and being in their life as well. I think I'm saying that right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I would be interested, Steve and everyone else, just to know, so what do people do to involve him? And so I think what you mentioned is great. And we always think of ICE, three words: involvement, inclusion, C for connection, and then E is the engagement. And that's your questions about engaging him. How do we really get him to be engaged? And so involving him is important that you have your program designed to make room for him, so he's becomes part of the program. And it's really about what, in my experience, what you're able to offer him. So once he comes to the program, how have you really included him in the process that you already have with mom? Because it's really about, and the last person who was speaking, making him part of that visit so that he is part of it. He's not just there as an add-on, he's actually part of the visit. So you begin talking with him as well as her. And then I think what I've seen across Healthy Start programs also is a way of engaging him. So in addition to engaging him in existing services, there are some specific services or activities that are designed just for him. So when he comes, it's like, hey, and we have this that you also can be part of. And many folks, when you have limited resources, one thing that Ken Scarborough and I discovered in our examining those 150 programs, well, a common element that we encourage you to think about is some type of support group or gathering for men, just creating space and place for him. And so if you have your CAN, you can even have a subgroup of your CAN that's just for the men. So having space and place for him, because usually he would appreciate just having a space where he can come with other men and fathers. And so that's been a successful element that we've seen in Healthy Start programs that ends up creating some type of support group or a gathering space for those men or fathers that do come, so they can kind of come together and talk about whatever they need. And the third thing, as you talk about the CAN, it's really having partners that are part of your community action network that really can provide some of the services that you're going to find that he needs. Because if he comes, Stephen, and he has all these needs, but my program can't meet those needs, well, it makes sense that he doesn't really want to come. You don't have what I need there. It's just for her and the baby. But being able to say, oh, we have partners that actually can help you with finding a job. We work with such and such, and they can help you do that. So again, through your partnerships and being able to make referrals and letting them know there's other places you can get your needs met. Those are some things that are helpful when it comes to how do you engage him and retain him. So it's about the engagement and how you engage him. Okay, anyone else, thoughts?
In general, women are more motivated to be part of the program. You know, they, as men, I'm not saying old men, but as men, we leave it up to the woman to take care of the baby. And that's not really right, because when people are in a relationship, men and women, they both should take care of the baby. But many men out there, they leave it up to the woman, which is not really fair, you know, especially if you want to make them be part of the program. Like, for instance, I'm Hispanic, you know, I'm Latino. Many Latino men, what they do is, oh, baby, you take care of the baby, you clean the baby, and that's it. And the man doesn't do nothing else. He comes from work, watch TV, the woman cleans the house. And it's crazy, you know, it's not really fair, you know. And these programs should be utilized so these men can be better educated. But many, they don't know, or they're not well informed, or it could be also they don't really care about being informed about the program. And that's the one of the key issues that we have to actually tackle. Make them motivated. But even if we do everything in our power, even if we talk about what we actually offer in the program, many of these men don't really care about it. And it's really hard and it's really tough.
So I see June has her hand up, and I'm gonna put a question to the side, Pia and Lisa, because I want to come back to that, Steve, and just challenge that a little bit, right? That men don't care. And so I think some other things that we as a community working with men and fathers need to be aware of that I would love to bring out, but I certainly want to honor Violet, you have your hand up.
This is June Gray. Can you hear me?
June, yep, go right ahead, June.
Okay.
How you doing, Dr. Gray?
One of the concerns that we have is a lot of our moms, young moms, or under the age of 25, the fathers aren't even involved. They don't have a relationship with their fathers. So when we either bring them in and ask them, say, you want to come in, you want to go to a visit, you want to go to a prenatal visit, be there in labor and delivery, or follow up, the mothers, they've established, they don't have a relationship with the fathers. So this is a concern that we have that we're trying to deal with. We're now going to reconnect with another fatherhood program in the area, but some of these women, they're just not, they have no relationship with the father of the baby.
Yeah.
If I could jump in and share, good afternoon, everybody. If I can jump in and share, I think that there are several issues, right? I think one of them, and I'll tag on Ms. June's issue, is that a lot of times moms don't want to talk about the dad because there's no more romantic relationship. So when the romantic relationship is over, then the conversation becomes he's not involved. Obviously he's involved. There's a whole baby coming. So at some point he was very involved, right? And so how do we, I think it's a matter of training how to get practitioners to talk to moms about the dad, right? So we just kind of write it off. A lot of times some mothers also don't want to talk about dad because of resources. So a lot of moms, we literally have to say to them, Healthy Start will continue to help you. They're not going to go away if you tell us about the dad. Our goal is to come in. So I think there's some things about what the system has always produced, especially for me when it comes to African-American fathers, since that's my wheelhouse. You know, there's that stigma of if you tell that the dad is around, that you don't get the resources. Then again, there's the romantic relationship and that navigation of what happens when we're not together, but I'm pregnant, but now he has another girlfriend and maybe she's pregnant at the same time too, right? Some of those type of things. I think internally though, we have a huge hiccup because you know, Healthy Start is a system that has traditionally trained to think about the mom. Mom comes first, what happens with the baby and mom. And we're literally trying to change the thinking pattern of practitioners who have practiced service for so long. We kind of hustle our own people so that we don't wait for our Healthy Start people or for somebody to make the referral. So that's just been a change for us. We'll go to the WIC office, we're in the street, we'll do what we have to do. But I could see how it would be burdensome for a one fatherhood coordinator who does not have the staff nor the skill set. So I think it's just this huge, big piece around how we talk to fathers, how we get fathers, what do we have to do to get them, and then how do we work with mothers to get fathers, if that makes sense to everyone.
Yes, and I also think that sometimes if the fathers are gang involved,
yep,
they don't want to be involved with the mother.
Those are my best dads. Those are my gang dads are my best dads. I love a gang member dad. He be present. He ain't got no job.
No, not in the Trenton, Mercer County area of New Jersey right now. And some of them are incarcerated. So.
Remember, there are programs in your city as well for incarcerated dads. All across the country now, there's programs who are trying to engage the dad if he's incarcerated, so that mother can go visit with the baby, and they can make arrangements for that too. It's everywhere. So I know that that's something they're doing. Sorry to be talking, but you told me to say something again. I'm gonna apply it now.
No, I thank you. I thank you for your input. I'm writing down things, now.
This is good. Now, National Fatherhood Initiative, just for June and others, has a curriculum for dads, incarcerated dads. So again, those dads that are preparing to come out, there's a way that practitioners can go in and start working with them early and preparing for that release as well. So as Avis is saying, there are lots of curriculum out there, but the National Fatherhood Initiative, which many of you are familiar with because you've been trained as coordinators for the 24/7 Dad program, well, they have the Inside Out Dad is also about working with the incarcerated fathers. And again, across the Healthy Start communities, many of these low-income men of color are having history with incarceration. And so 3 things Dr. Alexander lets us know they're living under: the shadow of prison, parole, or probation. And working with a dad that has to deal with a probation officer also can interrupt his flow in connecting with his child as well. So it is a good topic to talk about, and how you work with men that have those as issues, whether they're incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, and have probation that they're dealing with. All of those things become important to working with them to keep them connected to their children. So very, very good points. Violet, we see your hand, so we want to jump in.
Good morning. Well, good morning. I'm in Portland, Oregon, so it's still morning here to everyone. A lot of what I was going to say has been said, but I'm going to go back to when Ken was first speaking about having all of the groups and the classes and special incentives, and we have all of that. It still doesn't, we're still struggling. One caveat to Portland, Oregon is that we have a lot of fathers who are fathers to more than one of the mothers in our program. And so that's a barrier as well. And just wondering if there's any special ways to engage those particular fathers in the program. We have men who attend our groups and classes, but they aren't connected to the women in the program. So it's really about how to get the men who are connected to our women, because that's what HRSA says, they have to be connected there. So we're trying to come up with some creative ways to do that. Incarceration, death. We're having multiple shootings in our area of late, and several are attached to our families. That's another barrier that we're facing here in the city. So, and then a limited number of Black people in general. So we're not like any of the big cities where you're going to go to this part of town, you can set up a tent and have all of the interaction with the families, the fathers, the moms, they're all going to be there. It's not that way here. So really trying to come up with some more creative ways to reach fathers even before the partner is pregnant. We're trying to think of, I don't know. It's been a struggle here. Like I said, we have everything is in place. We just need the men to come and engage. And
so the question, and again, this is great too, because I'm also thinking about what type of support might the TA Center provide someone like you, Violet, or a project like yours, right? If you have everything in place, because you really need to ask the question, so where is the problem? So we go right to the front end. So let's talk about the moms that are enrolled. What's the story about those 300 moms that you've enrolled? What's the story about their partners? Are all of them incarcerated? Are some of them deceased? Are, you know, so really understanding what's going on with the partners of the 300. And if, again, no longer romantically involved, the things that Avis was saying, it's important for all of you to kind of understand who your population is, because that's important. You only have to target 1/3 of the 300, because we know within Healthy Start, these are some of the issues, right? And so they don't expect all 300 partners of the women to come in because they realize these other things. And I think that's important in describing your community. So I love what you've just said. Population, number one is number one, limited number of people. And so that's one thing. A couple of things that just from what you all have said, I would like to go back to. One is thinking about the system. And this goes back to, I think, Stephen. So we should not be surprised that men have a hard time connecting to this system. And why? Because it's maternal and child health. The system was not designed for him, number one. So I think as you think about your program, how do we better our system to make it, you know, father friendly was a term that people use, but is your program really father friendly? Is it father centric or family centric at this point? Has it changed? Because again, the system wasn't designed for him. And so it's hard for men to engage in a system that wasn't designed for them in the first place. So that is probably one step to start with. And because again, this idea of not caring all the time, Steve, I was just teasing you a little bit because it's not that they don't care, but you said something really vital. Young women, when they get older, they transition to a GYN. They have a physician, and they kind of stay connected to systems. They're used to dealing with systems. They, you know, get pregnant. They have a GYN, OBGYN, et cetera. Young men, that's the first time men fall off from the system. So to your point, we don't really have engagement with the medical system in our lives, unless we're going to the military, unless you're getting a job, and for many, starting sports or prison. That's when you get your physicals. And so there is important to understand this history of how men engage in medical systems versus women. So you're absolutely right. Women are used to these systems because they've been connected and they haven't lost connection. And the other point that someone else made up, which is important too, historically, and I think Avis made this point too, that you have to understand the history of father involvement for these communities. And usually it has been a risk and associated with his involvement. And so some of you may be experiencing what Avis described is the message that is out there that you have to address is if he gets involved, I'm going to lose benefits, whether it's housing, whether it's food stamps and things like that. So those are important things to consider. So I think one place that folks can start is really training of the staff, thinking about the messages that you want to make sure you're giving to your clients and having a collective conversation about that so you can decide these are the messages that we want to make sure that we have and we're giving out. Because the truth of the matter is that when he was involved, again, that usually meant there are no benefits. And so there's an incentive to not have him involved. So that was an important thing I heard. It's messaging. And then June, when you came back in, we talked about the messaging to dad. So once you do get a dad there, what are the messages that you want to make sure that he's getting? And someone said in the chat, his importance. And so he understands. And that's why understanding his value added during pregnancy, how that can contribute to a healthy pregnancy outcome if he is involved, and his attachment early on with the baby outcomes, letting him know that you matter even then, because traditionally, no one told him that he matters when she's pregnant because she's carrying the baby, not him. So again, those that are working with the men, it's messaging and educating the dads, and so he understands his value add even during pregnancy and really early after, early connection, breastfeeding, supporting, and as Steve was saying a long time ago, helping clean up the house after the baby's here. So there's lots of things he can do. So how you engaging with those messages. So those are a couple of notes that just what I've heard, wanted to speak to. And the last one, which is an important one brought up, by, I think, Violet, but this multiple fertility partners. So they have an official name for dads that have many children. And I've heard over the years, there's been a dad that's had 3 or 4 women pregnant at the same time in his neighborhood. So multiple fertility partners, they're called MFPs. And so the goal then for one of the goals for a coordinator, a male coordinator, and the reason we know that men beget men, that may be something as a male coordinator or caseworker you focus on. Once you get these dads, you may go into your neighborhood gym to recruit dads. So it's not only fathers connected to the women, but it's fathers connected to children. So if you see men in the neighborhood with a baby under the age of 2, you might approach them and see if they want to enroll in the program. But they may have many children, but you can begin to work with them from that perspective, because there is a way to work with men that have many children or they're multiple fertility partners. So that is a term, and certainly more work that needs to be done as far as researching how to better engage those dads. But it gets really challenging. And I do remember a case in New Haven where a dad had 6 children, and he was at the male involvement meeting, and he was actually just struggling. He's like, I'm going from one house to the other. I don't have a job right now, so I can't do this and can't do that. And so we've always talked about men's feelings of inadequacy. And so again, coordinators, once you connect with that dad, this is important for you. You have to work with him on all those levels, but even addressing that feelings of inadequacy, feelings I don't matter, I'm not value or worth, there's no value for me being here. That becomes some of the specific work that a coordinator actually can do once you get the men. But again, we're talking about before you even get them to get to that conversation. So I've heard a few things here and just wanted to kind of feed those back to the group and see if there's a further dialogue on those. But messaging that you want staff to have is a good place for many to start with training for your staff. So other questions or thoughts?
Ken, could you address that a lot of us are, I'm not sure if a lot, but I'm just making that up. But in case it is, y'all can raise your hand. But a lot of us are internally trying to get the organization that we work with to see the importance of fatherhood. So now we kind of thought we were just ready to do these classes and work with these men. And now we're advocates. Now we're pushing up against the systems in which we work to say, okay, if you've had 300 moms, when we're interviewing moms, what's happening with the process? Why aren't we even just asking the question? We kind of did something backwards, that we started to call the moms ourselves and say, we asked for a list of the moms and just say, can you give us the name of the dad? We were able to do that, but the workers were not. And so I was just like, why don't y'all do what we did? Just ask for the dad's name and phone number. And then we call the dad and we do the legwork to engage him. But I don't know if anyone else is having that problem, but I think one of the major sources for me is that it's written a certain way. And I'm a stickler and I'm like, this is the way we're supposed to be doing it. And side-eye, we're not. So then I'll just get it how I know how to get it, right? Like as a fatherhood practitioner. But if you have someone that's a fatherhood coordinator, but they haven't been a practitioner for years, they would not know how to navigate all of this. They're still waiting for the worker to send them. And there's no way, if you have 300 moms, I can't get 10 dads. So I don't know if anyone else is having that struggle.
That was great. I would love to see hands and all that. That's because Kevin, jump right in. Yes. And I can respond, but jump right in first.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Kevin McKinney, SIHF Healthy Care. And I echo Ms. Files' comments. She's heard me say it before. And I concur with what everyone else has said. And I just think many of my challenges start internally because I'm the 4th person in the process. So 3 people have talked to dad before me, and depending on what they did or did not say, he doesn't make it to me. And so your messaging point is head on, Ken, in the fact that if that dad isn't invited to participate first by that mom, if mom isn't persuaded that for the baby's outcome and her outcome, dad is important regardless of the relationship. And I won't even go into the lack of infrastructure that exists in the CAN or the consortium, because if their messaging is off, now not only am I an advocate, Ms. Files, I'm fighting internally and I'm fighting to establish external audiences that understands for our families and communities, this is a mandatory process if we're expecting healthy outcomes. So that's where I find myself. And I would like to know, or at least understand how I could nudge some of the case managers or some of the directors even to consider that that is a required component for success?
Well, here's the good news, Kevin and everyone else. You don't have to nudge them. You said it. This is a required component for this 2019 to 2024 funding cycle of Healthy Start. It is an expectation that 101 grantees are now connecting fathers to the program. It's a required component, so it is not optional. And many people have brought that up, both from what you're saying and Avis is saying. So how do we work with the buy-in internally? Number one, start with the grant that you received. And so this is where coordinators really have to work in close partnership with project directors and project managers, and then working closely with the staff. But it's the project director and manager that's going to ensure that this component is part of what everyone is doing. And so, because that first doorway is the mom. When she shows up, the first person with her is your caseworker. The caseworker has to ask the question, can we have dad's information? And we have a coordinator that can follow up with them, but we at least need to get the information. So the mom is one of those doorways. And if coordinators aren't getting referrals from the Healthy Start workers, then that's problem number one for everyone, because the coordinator cannot be expected to run out there in the community and try to find out anonymous 300 people that were enrolled, partners of people that were enrolled. No, there's a system that says you're getting a list of referrals from your colleagues, the caseworkers, to start from in the first place, for you then to do phone call outreaching, to go door to door, to invite them to meetings. Before you can get them engaged, what are you starting with? And so this is a very important point, that even in our system, and part of, again, the system now designed for him, it should include really protocol that's in place for the Healthy Start worker themselves to ask those questions. And when dad shows up now with mom, then that caseworker is able to say again, and I have, Kevin, who is our father coordinator, that can follow up with dad as well and support dad even more. But you have to get that first referral from mom, from your that comes from your caseworker. So is there anyone else out there that has that challenge? Because this has come up repeatedly. I'm not getting referrals. Well, then you need to be talking to your project director to say what's going on. Because for me, when I ran my program, that became part of that contract we had with the people providing the services. The workers are expected to ask the question and whatever protocol you put in place, but there has to be a requirement that's, so let it be written, so let it be done. So anyone else have any thoughts about that, that's having trouble, again, getting just the internal buy-in where you're not getting referrals from your colleagues? Is anyone else having that challenge, or have had it and addressed it and you want to share?
I like to say something.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I think we have a problem with young fathers as well at 17 years old, or 17 and up. Most important, that I don't think the mother wants the father's heart to get involved with the program, is because one is the Corey, two, he's scared to be a father, and three, is the work, getting employed. And if that's the three barriers of that father, so that's why I think that's how come most of the mothers don't want the father to get involved. And if that's the case, if the mother is qualified to get housing, and if she put the father's name up there, she won't get housing. So let's go back and forth with that, because I was one of the mothers told me, he said, I'm not gonna put the fathers down because I was told I can get a housing just like that. And I think that's like, that'll put that's more burden on the father. Like I said, the jobs, scared of being a father, and the Corey. Mm-hmm. So that's why most of we can't hardly get the father that's what to be in the program with the mother.
But is that true for many of you, that if a mom feels that way, that I can't get them involved because that'll interrupt some type of benefit? Is that true for your program? Because I don't know if that's true for every program, because we heard from Avis and others that within this Healthy Start program, there's no penalty for you acknowledging the dad, because you're not going to report his name to any other system where that would be the case. So I guess within your program, you have to answer, is it true? Once you give me the father's name, that information is going elsewhere that could jeopardize your benefits, et cetera. So is that true or not is the first question that, well, I guess a project would have to answer. Because
and I don't know that Ken, I don't know if it's true for our programs, but it's true for other programs, right?
Correct.
It's true for what happens in housing, which then feeds into, we're just another system to them. So when they hear our system and our pitch, they're still thinking about all the other systems that will do that to them, right? And so maybe it's not our program in particular, but because of what happens, I really think it's an educational piece that we've got to train the workers, because again, waiting for them, we've got to train the workers how to do the advocacy around fatherhood, or at least let us do it. I mean, when Kevin talked about there's all these layers, well, by the time they get to Kevin, they probably saying, well, it's a little program they got, they get you together. But that's not how I'm going to talk about it. You know, I'm going to talk to my dad about the things that are going to happen with him, you know, and focus in on him. Sometimes I'm not even focusing in on the baby. I'm focusing on him, and I'm telling him he's important. And then I add all the other things about the baby. Because sometimes if you start with the baby, like, yeah, I'm having a baby, but who talks to dads about them being important? Nobody. So that changes the game right there. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm asking, and for clarification, if it's not true, because you can only stand behind your program. And so if there's no penalty for dad being involved in my program, I want to be able to say that to dad, to kind of disarm, well, that, or the mom, well, that's not the case with this. It's true for other systems, absolutely. But within this program, his information, we're not reporting it to any other system that we would be giving his name to. So I think it's just, like you said, in that conversation, you're able to really address this issue. It's a reality in systems in this country. We know that, and the housing, et cetera. But within Healthy Start, is there a penalty for dads being involved? Because I think being able to give that message that there's no penalty is not going to jeopardize anything you get with us. Well, in fact, we have other things that dad can benefit from being part of our system, but that, and assuring them that your data is not going to be shared beyond this, because that confidentiality agreement is signed as well. So you can kind of cover your own program. You can't cover others, but you can cover your own. So that's kind of the issue I wanted to bring up, to just be clear about, as a program, are you part of a system that has required a mandated reporting, or if your Healthy Start program is able to really offer that protection over the data that you get about him? Because this is important. So does anyone else have any thoughts, or what do you do within your program if this is an issue? This is an important piece.
Well, it's also an issue that many of these men are undocumented. Many of them are fearful to actually come in because they think they're going to be reported to immigration services. And also, many of these men, you know, they already have a previous relationship. You know, the baby's born out of wedlock. And if the main wife finds out that he actually has another woman that he's dating and everything, many of these men won't come in because they are fearful. They think that there's going to be consequences, and that's why many of them, I believe that they won't be part of it. Also, as you mentioned, many of them, their work hours is crazy. Many of them work like 10, 12 hours. And then it's not feasible for them to actually come and be part of our program.
Yeah, and this is great, because some of this information you have sounds like you have, right? But there's other information you're just assuming many men are in that situation. I think for every program, though, you want to make sure you document what the experiences that you're having. So again, if you have a referral process in place from your Healthy Start workers giving you a list of names, then what are you doing with those names? And you outreach, you try to recruit those dads of the list that you've gotten, telling the story about that list. Hey, I got 20 guys. 5 of them don't want to be involved because, as Steve's saying, they're working, they can't be involved. And so I can document that for the program's sake. And I can talk about the other 15. I was able to get 15 to come to a meeting, and maybe 5 are continue to come. So whatever is happening in your area, in your program, you need to be able to document that. But again, answering the question, tell us about those 300 potential male partners from the 300 women that you're required to serve. So if it turns out that 80% of the partners of those women don't want to be involved, can't be involved, incarcerated, died, then I'm hoping that's what your data is saying to the feds. So the 100 guys that we could have gotten, we can't, because this is what's going on with those dads. Many people are saying they're having trouble with their recruitment and outreach, but again, telling the story about why your number is low. Was there an effort to go after those 100 men? So being able to document that and sharing really what happened. So I think that's an important piece. So Steve, then whatever that story is, it is based on our experience here, which may look different from another program. At Daryl's program, it's going to look different there because Daryl will tell a different story about his attempt to get his 100. But we've talked about that referral process, internal referrals, the internal buy-in, and that seems to be a big place where people are having trouble. The internally, even before that coordinator can go do this great work, are you getting internal referrals? That seems to be a big, big area for folks. And if that's not happening, then that's where we need to start. And as Avis and others are saying, so again, as you work with colleagues, that you need to really partner there on really going after these dads and how to talk with the moms themselves. Again, you're gonna have the multiple partner, all that stuff is gonna be the case, but that's data that you'll have as you tell your story too.
I noticed that I hear a lot of conversation about very similar, no matter where we are, a lot of the issues that I hear people talking about are very similar. And there's some things about that I personally find really concerning. Before I started doing work here, I was teaching puberty education in schools. And just to kind of give you a feel for that really quickly, one of the things I remember asking in an 8th grade class is, do you think that boys should have some say about what to do about an unplanned pregnancy? And over the course of about 9 years, I would have 6 classes a day. Inevitably, somebody is going to tell me that the reason that boys shouldn't have any say in what to do about an unplanned pregnancy is because he's probably not going to stick around anyway. This was something that every single class, there would be at least one girl who would tell me this in every single class. Based on what I'm hearing here and some of my own experiences, I feel like we are tackling a situation that has already blown up into something much bigger and much more complicated than I guess I feel like it should be, having, you know, raised kids myself and gone through that process. So one of the things that is kind of hitting me is really like starting to register with me is moving back to, like, say, high school classes and high school age kids and starting to have that conversation there for a couple of reasons. One, we can still promote our program and what we have to offer. And I don't know if this is going to shock anybody, but we got kids in high school causing pregnancies and creating pregnancies and needing our services as early as that. But boy, man, when we get down the road where we've got a brother having 2 and 3 pregnancies going on at the same time with different women that are in our program, it is a much more challenging situation. And, you know, when we talk about wanting our young men to be fathers and to really step up into that role, it's one of those things. It's like saying, okay, you've got $6 million in debt and we have to start paying it off, right? You don't even know where to start. The picture has gotten so big and so out of control that it's a really tough place to start. And I'm really looking at this now a little bit differently and feeling like we got to go back and do some work with our younger brothers and teach them a little bit more about this idea about being a father and about what it means to not be present for that child when you have a child. And, you know, what do you really want to do? And then taking some sort of steps and action that can make that work better. Because I think you ask any freshman in high school if he wants to have 5 kids from 5 different women all grown up at the same time, and if he feels like that's a good choice, he's gonna tell you no, right? But we still find ourselves dealing with things kind of like that. And that is my 2 cents. That's
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Jeff, and that's important. So I would like, we're gonna run out of time, but I want everyone, if you could, look into the chat and you see Avis's comment. And Avis, we at the TA Center, I think that's a great idea. These networking cafes, it's hard to try to do a whole lot in a short hour, but the purpose, as you heard in the beginning, really coming together and hearing to get into some dialogue. But I do like your suggestion, and there's definitely something we can do to follow up with this networking cafe. And so I'm going to ask my team just to hear my idea and say yes to what Avis is suggesting, which is to do a follow-up to the folks that showed up here today. And those that are interested in doing a solutions-based cafe will actually have it that way and do breakout rooms. So we'll do another cafe, but we'll market it to this group. So those that were here today, if you're interested in kind of going into a session with solutions-based, where we can get in smaller groups and really have people talking with one another, we will definitely do that. And so I think that's a great idea, Ava. So thank you, because that's a model we can take even when we do other networking cafes, because we just never know how much is needed. But if that request is there, we'll do that. So I see people are saying yes to that. So we will do a follow-up to this, a solutions-based cafe, where we'll actually just break you up in smaller groups and have particular focus, and then come out with some solutions to bring back to the group as a whole. So before we leave though, just if you all could answer this question. So I wanna just, one thing that I got out of this for today though, for everyone to think about, there seems to be 3 levels of work conversations and messaging. What's the message that we give to mothers, right? Then what's the messaging we have for our caseworkers? Then also what's the messaging to dads? And so I think that's gonna bring out some different type of work, because some of this is about the coordinator working with dad directly. But a lot of this conversation has also been about how do we work with staff, with our organization, to make sure that we're engaging dads in a way that we're getting them referrals, at least, to get to the coordinator. So I heard that 3 levels there: what's done with mom, what's done with our workers, what's done actually with dads. And the other thing I would like to ask, when it comes to recruitment strategy and plan, I would just, by yes or no, please put this in the chat. How many of you actually have a recruitment plan, a written plan for recruitment? Just yes or no. Yes or no. Do you have a recruitment plan that you actually use? Okay, great. This is even good information for another session. Because those that don't have a recruitment plan, you want to have a recruitment plan. It's like part of your work plan. You need to have a detailed recruitment plan. Who do I go to? When do I go to? There needs to be follow-up in that. Again, if you're getting referrals from your colleagues, you need to be checking on it every week. Put a whole quality improvement process in place for that. So that's important, whether you have a plan or not, because that's something we can certainly start with. I love that. In progress. Yeah, so this is a time, if you don't have one, I think even today's conversation is beginning to think about things you want to include in the plan, or who's going to do the follow, who's doing the first ask, who, you know, it's just good to have one. So thank you for that. And I had another question, but my chicken scratch I can't read, which is fine because it is 12:59. So this has been great beginning dialogue for this group. And we will take your suggestion and then come back with a follow-up cafe that'll be more solutions-based. And again, thank you, Avis, for the idea. We'll intend on going to breakout rooms. So if you found this helpful and want to go deeper and get more specific, definitely come back to the next part 2, we'll call this, of a networking cafe that'll be more solutions-based, and we can break up in smaller groups and get to more, and then come back and share overall. So Lisa, did we have anything else we wanted to share with folks?
We had a couple of slides on just another event that's coming up today. So if we can go ahead and just give us another moment to share that with you all.
Yeah, and again, we'll write to you all, follow up with you all about this next session. But go ahead, Lisa, that last slide I'm gonna put up.
Definitely. And would you still like us to do a satisfaction survey, Ken?
Yes. Okay.
So let me go ahead and release the satisfaction survey first, and then we'll move on to, actually, let me just go ahead and move on to, today there's another webinar at 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time regarding Healthy Start and WIC. So please join us, and I'm gonna go ahead and put in the registration link in the chat box for you all to register and join us.
And if you all can, please do the satisfaction survey, because as we talk with the division, these networking cafes is something that started last year, like grantees meeting, and people enjoy them. So we've continued to do them, but it's great to have your feedback to share with the division that you all are engaging in these like open dialogues to get to some solutions-based work. So definitely, if you can, take time to do that satisfaction survey. It's pretty short, but it's helpful for us in giving information back to the division, letting them know these are worthwhile doing. So they've been, again, people have enjoyed them so far. And we'll look forward to following up with you all for the part 2, more solutions-based for the next time. But thank you all so much for taking time to hang out. And we try to do that lunch hour for most folks. It may be breakfast for some in the West Coast, but you can have your breakfast next time. But hopefully you've had a chance to have lunch as well. And we'll definitely see you the next time. But thank you for hanging out for this afternoon. And we'll see you the next time. And thank you, Lisa and team.
Thank you, Ken. That was a great conversation.